Hi guys! Today we're going to talk about all the books that I'm really anticipating for 2022. I'm going to go in order of anticipated release date. Obviously this stuff is subject to change as time goes on, and stuff towards the end of the year is definitely a lot more hazier. Also, they definitely haven't announced all of the book releases for this year yet, so I'm going off of what I currently have available. All of this stuff is subject to change. But I have about 20 books this year that I'm super excited for. Most of them are fantasy, but I am trying to go a little bit out of that genre as well. So figured I'd list them out for you as well as their anticipated release dates. So starting off with January, releasing January 4th, we have Where the Drowned Girls Go by Seanan McGuire. This is book 7 in the Wayward Children series and follows a character who has been introduced in earlier installments named Cora, who was kind of like in a mermaid type of world and is now back in our world. She hasn't really found her place at Eleanor Westby's school and has requested a transfer to a different institution for wayward children known as, I believe, Whitethorn Institute. Yeah. But this school seems a little less friendly than Eleanor's, and while Cora hasn't been my most favorite character in the series, but mostly because I feel like we don't really know her super well, I am really intrigued to see how this further develops the Wayward Children's sort of universe and what this new school is all about. Then on January 11th, we have Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I really loved Rachel Lynn Solomon's book that I believe came out last year called The X Talk. It was a really delightful romance revolving around public radio. Weather Girl seems to be about TV meteorology, or at least the main character is a meteorologist, and I used to work in television broadcast news, so I'm really interested to see a romance kind of set in that area, and I don't know, it's like nostalgic for me at this point, so I think that'll be a really cute setting for a romance. I myself met my boyfriend at a news station, so I think that'll be cute. It follows said TV meteorologist and a sports reporter who are scheming to reunite their divorced bosses, which gives me vibes like that movie Set It Up from Netflix. Kind of reminds me of that. So I think that'll be really cute. And yeah, I'm curious to see if I continue to like Rachel Lynn Solomon's work or if the X Talk was just like a one-off. We shall see. Then releasing February 1st, we have Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This is the sequel to Finley Donovan is Killing It, which came out last year. It is kind of like a cozy mystery. The first one revolves around, obviously, Finley, who is a single mom, recently divorced, and she is also a fiction writer. In the first one, she is meeting her agent at like a Panera Bread, and she's talking about her newest novel, which involves crime and murder. Someone overhears and takes her for a hit woman and offers her $50,000 to take somebody out, and she needs the money, but she is not a contract killer, so it kind of evolves into a series of ridiculous events, and it is so fun. She also has quite a couple sort of potential love interests, which is also entertaining. I loved the tone of the book. It was really like, despite the murder that was happening and like the crime things that were happening, like she's hired to take out like a mafia dude. It had like a weirdly cozy feel to it. I don't know. It felt like so real. The characters and like their problems felt so real despite the sort of ridiculous circumstances revolving around it. So I'm really excited to see where this next one goes. The first one left off on such a cliffhanger that literally made me gasp out loud. So I'm super excited for this next installment. Releasing on February 15th, we have the next Crescent City book, House of Sky and Breath. I literally very recently just finished the first one, House of Earth and Blood. While I thought it had sort of world building issues in the beginning, I really came to like it. I thought the last couple hundred pages of that book were so fun and entertaining. Sarah J. Maas does excellent character work, so I'm really excited to see where this series goes. I think the second one has even more potential than the first, and I think this universe has a lot of potential, so I'm super excited. This is going to be a very popular release, I'm sure. Then on February 22nd, we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. This is a standalone fantasy inspired by Spirited Away and Korean mythology, which is a very fun, interesting combination. I love Spirited Away. I mean, who doesn't? But this standalone fantasy takes place in a world where deadly storms continuously ravage our main character's homeland, and her community, in an attempt to appease the sea god causing these storms, supposedly, sacrifices a beautiful maiden in hopes that he will choose her to be his bride. The woman that is going to be sacrificed is our main character Mina's brother's love interest. So in an attempt to save her brother and his love from, losing one another, she sacrifices herself and falls into the sea and eventually ends up in the spirit realm, and she must figure out how to solve this mystery surrounding the sea god. And humans can't last long in the spirit realm, so it's very limited time that she has, and it sounds so lovely, and the cover is beautiful. So I'm really intrigued by this, and I love a good standalone fantasy, so I have really high hopes for this one. Then on March 1st, one of my most anticipated releases for the year is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. It has spooky haunted house vibes. I love both the UK and the US covers for this are absolutely beautiful and have such atmosphere to the illustrations. I think they're so pretty. Apparently it's Secret Garden meets Crimson Peak, so I'm expecting ghosts, which I know V.E. Schwab has some experience writing, so really excited for that. I believe this is also a standalone. I don't think she's mentioned that this is going to be a series or not, but I'm pretty sure it is a standalone. Follows a girl named Olivia Pryor who's grown up in a boarding school, and all she has of her past is her mother's journal, which seems to unravel into madness. Then a letter invites Olivia to come home to Gallant. Gallant. Yet when Olivia arrives, no one is expecting her, but Olivia is not about to leave the first place that feels like home, and it doesn't matter if her cousin Matthew is hostile or if she sees half-formed ghouls haunting the hallways. So yeah, this sounds so atmospheric and cool. I think V.E. Schwab has some of the most lovely writing I've ever read, and I'm really excited to read something a little spookier from her. Then on March 8th, we have A Far Wilder Magic by Allison Saft. I read her book Down Comes the Night this last year, and it was so, again, atmospheric. That one was more of a gothic romance, a little tinge of horror. It was so good, and I really enjoyed it. When I saw she was coming out with another book this year, I was immediately intrigued. The cover is beautiful. Oh my god, I love that pop of yellow. It's so pretty. It is about a young woman named Margaret Wetley who spots a legendary Hala, the last living mythical creature, and she knows the Half Moon Hunt will soon follow. Whoever is able to kill the Hala will earn fame and riches and unlock an ancient magical secret. If Margaret wins the hunt, it may finally bring her mother home. While Margaret is the best sharpshooter in town, only teams of 2 can register, and she needs an alchemist. I believe this is going to be a slow burn romance, which is one of my favorite things in fiction. And I'm really curious. This is unlike anything I've ever read. The hunt aspect is interesting. I'm curious as to why they're hunting down mythical creatures. If that's the last one, you think you'd want to preserve it, but I am very intrigued by this one, so I will be picking this up for sure. And on March 15th, we have The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James, who, if you've watched any of my videos in the last couple of months, you know I'm a really big fan of now. I really like the way that she tends to intertwine sort of this supernatural aspect with her thrillers, and I don't know if this new book is supernatural. It didn't really specifically say or mention anything about ghosts, but it does involve a true crime blogger who gets more than she bargained for while interviewing the woman acquitted of 2 cold case slayings. So yeah, I'm not totally sure what the scope of this is going to be again on the supernatural front, but I'm intrigued, and where I've loved her 2 other books that I've read so much, I'm pretty much ready to pick up anything by her now, and I know it's going to be a good time. So very excited for that one. Then on May 3rd, we have Holly Black's first adult fantasy book, which I am so thrilled about, and that is The Book of Night. And this has a lot to do with like shadow magic, apparently, which sounds very unique and cool. I haven't seen anything like this before. It says shadows can be altered for entertainment and cosmetic preferences, and also to increase power and influence. You can alter someone's feelings and memories, but manipulating shadows has a cost, with the potential to take hours or days from your life. Your shadow holds all the parts of you that you want to keep hidden, a second self standing just to your left, walking behind you into lit rooms, and sometimes it has a life of its own. I am so intrigued. Peter Pan vibes, anyone? But yeah, I will pretty much read anything by Holly Black too. I loved the Cruel Prince series so much, and I'm really curious to see how she sort of evolves her writing to fit a more like adult theme. So really excited for that one. Also releasing on May 3rd, we have yet another author who I will pretty much immediately pick up whatever their new release is without questioning it, and that is Emily Henry's Book Lovers. You know, I've loved her romance books so far, and now that we have one surrounding books as well, so I'm just, I think that's the perfect combination. It follows I think a literary agent, yes, named Nora, who is cutthroat. And she's going to go visit her sister Libby in a small town in North Carolina. And she's hoping for the trip to be like really transformative for her. And she thinks it'll be an opportunity to kind of like start over with some aspects of her life. But then she runs into a sort of work enemy. She wants a meet cute, but she ends up running into this guy who she just never got off on the right foot with. He's a bookish, brooding editor from back in the city where she lives. The description says, it would be a meet cute if not for the fact that they've met many times and it has never been cute. Bookish enemies to lovers. What more do you want? I'm here for it. So again, Emily Henry, I love her romance novels, and I think this one is going to be delightful. Moving into June, we have a sequel that I'm really excited for, and it is For the Throne by Hannah Whitten, which releases on June 9th. I read For the Wolf a couple months ago, and it was so good. Perfect atmospheric read for fall. And that one was like a Red Riding Hood and Beauty and the Beast retelling. I thought it was going to be a standalone, but it became very evident by the end that there was going to be a sequel. And this one follows the main character's sister from the first one. So instead of Red, we are following Neve. She developed her own sort of powers in the first book. That was really interesting. And it also seems like this book might all be enemies to lovers, ? I'm not sure. The love interest potentially in this one has a very shady past, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to like him or not quite yet. But I really loved For the Wolf. I thought it was an excellent read. Again, very atmospheric, perfect for fall. So I think this one will be another good read for fall because it takes place in a dark realm. So I can't get too much into what this one's going to be about without spoilers, but if you're excited, or if you read For the Wolf, the sequel's coming out this next year, so get excited. In July, we have another sequel. Last year I read These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, and on July 19th, the sequel and final book in the duology, These Twisted Bonds, is set to come out. I know These Hollow Vows is like very derivative of what is pretty much currently popular in YA/NA fantasy at the moment, but I had a fun time, gosh darn it. It wasn't the best literature I've ever read, but I think it was a fun adventure story, and it had a very like entertaining love triangle. The last book left off on such a cliffhanger. I wanted to throw the book across the room, not in a bad way, but in a oh my god kind of way. So I'm really excited to see where this next one goes. Again, something really big happened at the end of the first one that I think will be interesting, and hopefully it will become a little bit more of its own thing. I think a lot of people compare it to ACOTAR, rightly so, but hopefully it'll evolve a little bit into something different because it's a fun time. Lexi Ryan, like, the way that she wrote it was such a page turner, even though it wasn't anything I hadn't read before, really. So I think in order to make that entertaining still, you know, that requires talent. So I'm curious to see where it goes. And another sequel, and I believe this is the end of a trilogy. I'm actually not sure how many books are planned, but I think it's 3. And that is Fury Song by Rosaria Munda, releasing August 9th. This is book 3 in the Aurelian Cycle series, starting with Fireborn and then Flamefall, both of which I read last year and absolutely loved. It is very tonally like How to Train Your Dragon meets Game of Thrones. There's a lot of political intrigue and sort of reconciling sort of the horrors of your family versus like who you are, and also like what your government is doing, and there's also dragons. So I think it's such a layered and nuanced story, and Rosaria Munda is so good at really getting you to empathize with all of her different characters, even when they have very opposing political stances. You totally understand why they feel that way, and like while you're reading their chapter, you're like, oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And then the next chapter, it'll be someone else's point of view who has a different opinion, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense too. And so I think like that's really hard to do, and her character work is amazing. So I don't know a whole lot about this one yet, other than its release date. I believe, once again, we are following Annie, Lee, and Griff, who were all points of view in the second one. And we might have a fourth point of view. It kind of seemed like in the description, someone in Griff's life named Dilo might also be a new perspective. So that'll be really interesting, because I think all 4 of these people have like similarities in their backgrounds that unite them, but like they've been raised in a way that deeply divides them, and it's just so interesting. I love this story, so I can't wait. I believe this is the end. I'm not totally sure, but if it is, I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. Then releasing on August 18th, we have the 3rd book in the Married to Magic series by Elise Kova, called A Duel with the Vampire Lord. I loved the previous 2 installments in this series. I think Elise Kova writes fantasy romance so well. It's like light and fun while still dealing with like some serious topics, but it's not like super grim. And I really love the way that she writes romances. They're really well paced, and you buy it. I'm excited for this one. I've mentioned before, I'm kind of in a vampire mood lately, so I'm curious to see how she sort of tackles that. And I believe this is an enemies to lovers romance. And from what I gather from the description, it is inspired by Pride and Prejudice. So like, I'm here for that. And the main character is a forge maiden who kind of sets out on a quest to kill the vampire lord, but messes up and ends up bloodsworn to him instead. And she must help end an ancient curse. So that sounds so good. I'm really into the world that Elise Kova has built for this series. It's been really fun, and I can't wait to see where the series goes. On August 23rd, we have Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is a new series from the author who wrote the Poppy War trilogy. I don't know how many books is supposed to be in this. I don't think it's just a standalone, but this is sort of her take on dark academia, so I'm intrigued. The Poppy War got very dark, so like, I know she can handle really heavy, serious topics, but I've never, actually no, the Poppy War did have an academic setting for a little bit, but it was more like very traditional, like China war school. This one seems to be more like collegiate level, and it follows a character named Robin, who is a Chinese boy raised in Britain. He enrolls in Oxford University's Royal Institute of Translation, which is also known as Babel. Babel's reach in foreign languages serves the Empire's quest to colonize everything it encounters. Where he is an immigrant himself, he knows that serving Babel inevitably means that he will be betraying his motherland, because Babel's research in foreign languages serves the Empire's quest to colonize everything it encounters. So he feels like a lot of conflict over this, and as his studies progress, he finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to sabotaging the imperial expansion. The description further goes on to say that it is sort of a response to both theme and tone, The Secret History, and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So I've read the latter book, which I really enjoyed. I haven't read A Secret History, but I know that's like a staple in dark academia. Yeah, that already sounds so interesting, and it's like something I've never quite thought of, is like how language plays a role into imperialism. So I think that's going to be a really interesting but also heavy book, which I'm used to from R.F. Kuang at this point. On August 30th, we have The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This is the sequel to Six Crimson Cranes. And beyond that, I don't know a whole lot. And I can't go into it too much what I'm expecting because that would spoil Six Crimson Cranes, but that was one of my 5-star reads from this last year, one of my favorite reads of 2021. So I'm pretty much going to pick this up immediately when it comes out because I am so curious to see where this goes. Elizabeth Lim's writing is just so charming, and the story just felt like a Disney movie. I don't know. So I can't wait to see where this one goes, and I'm really excited for the series. Then in September, we have on the 27th, The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is the sequel to Once Upon a Broken Heart. And again, not much has been released about this book, but I really enjoyed the first one. This is a series that is like a spin-off of the Caraval series, which I am aiming to read this year because as much as I loved Once Upon a Broken Heart, I felt like I was missing something having not read Caraval. So hopefully before I pick up The Ballad of Never After, I will have read Caraval. Once Upon a Broken Heart was so good and charming and fun. It was very lighthearted, so I'm really excited. It felt whimsical. Like it gave me a similar feeling to like The Nutcracker, even though it has like nothing to do with Christmas. It just had that sort of very fantasy, like whimsical feel to it, and I loved that. So cannot wait for the sequel. Also in September, but I don't think there's a solid date for it yet, is The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This is the 3rd book in the Drowning Empire series. The 2nd book, The Bone Shard Emperor, I have not read yet, but I loved the first one so much. I'm sure I'm gonna love the second one. I've heard good things about it. Again, I'm not sure if this is a trilogy or not. We shall see, but I'm really excited for the continuation of this series. I think Andrea Stewart is doing something really unique in fantasy right now, and I love the characters that she's created. And the first one had like a very interesting mystery sort of aspect at the center, so I'm hoping to see that kind of continue on through the next book and hopefully this 3rd book that is also coming out. The first book was one of my favorite reads of 2020. So I'm really excited to see how this series continues. Then in November, one of my most anticipated books, on the 8th, we have Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, and this is the sequel to Legendborn, which was one of my favorite books of 2021. I freaking loved Legendborn. Oh my gosh. And as soon as I finished it, I was like looking for details about when the second one was going to come out. I've been following Tracy Deonn since I finished that book, and I was like on Instagram waiting for the cover reveal, like when she announced it was going to be revealed. I'm so excited for this book. I think it is so fun and again, very layered storytelling, and I have no words because I'm just so excited. And this series has a lot to do with sort of the King Arthur mythology and sort of secret societies. Our main character, Bree, kind of finds herself involved in all of this following the unfortunate death of her mother, and she thinks that the secret society had not something to do with it, but like her mother's death is related to like what's going on with this King Arthur society. It was so good, and it had a fabulous love triangle. I know like love triangles are not for everybody, but like this one is so good. Like you truly root for both of them. Like I have a favorite, but I think both boys have their very strong pros. But yeah, so the series really expertly weaves, I think, sort of this coming of age story with this King Arthur mythos, as well as like black girl magic and sort of casual everyday microaggressions that this character has to face on top of all this supernatural stuff. The characters just feel really well realized, and I really fell in love with them in Legendborn, and I can't wait to see where they go in Bloodmarked. I'm worried for them, but I'm excited to read that book. Also releasing on November 8th, we have A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. I have not yet read her previous duology, We Hunt the Flame, but the description for this book sounds freaking amazing. It follows a gang of outcasts in a deadly heist led by Arthi Casimir to save her tea room, which fronts an illegal blood house where local vampires can purchase fresh blood. It is a King Arthur and Peaky Blinders with a side of vampire story. I'm sold. This is another planned duology by Hafsa Faizal. I definitely want to pick up We Hunt the Flame sometime this year to see if I vibe with her writing. But again, like, this premise is already so promising. I am here for it. I don't know what it is about vampires lately, but like, one, I'm into it, and two, so does the publishing world seem to be. So I am here for it. And yeah, so that is my list of my most anticipated reads for 2022 releases. As I said in the beginning of this video, that's not all of the books that are planned to come out this year that I'm excited for. I'm sure there's a lot of release dates that haven't been announced yet. There are also books that I'm interested in, but they're sequels to books that I haven't yet read, so I didn't really want to include those on this list until I read those first books. But I might come out with a updated list of anticipated releases for the rest of the year in like July or August or something, once there's some more clarity about release dates and whatnot. I am so excited. I think there should be so many good books coming out this year. I do want to read more like backlist older books, but I can't help myself. I love a good new release as well. Please let me know down in the comments. Are any of these books also on your list? Did I miss any books that you're really excited for this year? As I said, I tend to gravitate towards fantasy, but if I'm missing anything in like another genre you think I would like, please let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please feel free to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, follow my socials down in the description box below, and have a wonderful day. Bye.